My name is Muhammad Ashraf. I'm moderating this session, very important thematic session named as Sustainable Aquifer Management, Challenges and Opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know that Pakistan has one of the largest irrigation system in the world, irrigating about 17 million hectares of lands. Fortunately, this system, the extensive network of irrigation system and canals and also the rivers, it has helped to build one of the largest groundwater aquifer in the world. Fortunately, we are having fourth largest aquifer, groundwater aquifer in the world after USA, China and India. And this aquifer provides more than 90% drinking water, almost 100% industrial water comes from the groundwater, besides supplementing more than 60% water for agriculture purposes. So this is the importance of this groundwater. And fortunately, this is the aquifer which acts as a buffer against all kind of droughts, all kind of climate change, and I would like to say it also, it is a buffer against the flood management, because this is the water, this is the aquifer which takes lot of water to be drained. Otherwise, if the water is standing, on the surface for a longer period of time, it will have a nuisance. So, because of this importance, there is a huge pressure on the groundwater. Because of this pressure, the groundwater is depleting at an alarming rate. For example, in the urban area, particularly in Islamabad, where we are sitting, the rainfall is more than 1 meter, but at the same time, water table is depleting at a rate of 1 meter per year. In Lahore, the rate is half a meter per year, whereas in the Koita Valley, the depletion rate is more than 6 meter per year. So this is a huge pressure on the groundwater. So ladies and gentlemen, how we are going to this is a great resource for us. This presents a huge opportunity to us, but at the same time, it presents lots of challenges to us. So during this session, we will listen from our keynote speaker and also from our panelist how we are in fact going to manage this vital resource, which basically a buffer against all kind of calamity, as I mentioned. So ladies and gentlemen, first of our speaker is Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth Minzan Dick. Dr. Ruth is a senior research fellow in the National Resources and Resilience Unit at International Food Policy Research Institute, with over 25 years experience in transdisciplinary research. One of her major research areas deals with how institutions and policy affect the way people manage natural resources, especially land and water. She is a co-creator of the Women Empowerment in Agriculture Index and recipient of the Elinor Ostrom Collective Governance of the Commons 2019 Senior Scholar Award. She holds a PhD in development sociology from Cornell University. Now I would request our esteemed speaker, Dr. Ruth, for her keynote address. Over to you, Dr. Ruth.
Can we see the slides? Okay. Yeah. Or is it better if I show my slides? we bring up
Yes,
the
we can see your slides.
Now.
Please go ahead.
Oh. Should I show the slides? They're there. Okay, thanks.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So for many people, it may not be clear why are we talking about governance for aquifer management. Isn't that a technical issue? On the next slide, I'll give you an overview of the presentation of why I think this is an issue. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what do we mean by governance. Then how does it relate to groundwater? And specifically some of the issues in Pakistan. Then look at tools and approaches for groundwater governance. And finally, concluding with saying that there is not a simple solution. There is no panacea that is going to work everywhere, but there are some things that may, that have to be put in combination and locally contextualized. As some background on this, and I'm really sorry not to be there in person, but I worked in Pakistan over 25 years ago on studying groundwater markets. And so this gave me some exposure to the issues on the ground. On the next slide. So what do we mean by governance? It's the exercise of power, authority, and decision-making to manage the collective affairs of a community, a society, or a nation. There's a lot of other definitions, but I think that one captures a lot of the aspects that matter for groundwater. Now, governance can be formal or informal. And when we say governance, we don't just mean governments, not just the government that is in power, but this overall exercise of power and authority. Now, collaborative governance has become a very, very common approach to water management because its core goal is convening a diverse group of actors to collectively manage these common problems. And water problems almost always span different sectors and jurisdictions because water likes to cross boundaries. And then there are special challenges for groundwater because it is very hard to see. It's difficult to understand the dynamics of it, difficult to control. And because of all this, people tend to have a notion that it's a private resource. The water under my ground belongs to me, and I alone decide about that. They don't realize in many cases or think that it is in fact a collective resource and that one person's use affects others. There are as many challenges as there are for groundwater quantity. There are even more when it comes to groundwater quality. On the next slide. So this diagram indicates that if you take a look, if you're just looking at the short-term time horizon, like within a given season, and just on one plot, things are pretty simple. But as you go to longer time horizons, you need to worry about the property rights or the tenure security. And as you move up the spatial scale, above the level of an individual farm, to a community or to the country as a whole, and you really you need to look at coordination. Now, at higher levels, the state, the government may have the advantage in coordination, but at lower levels, the collective action has the advantage because usually the state does not have the capacity to coordinate and take action at very local levels. So if we look at it, wells and especially whole aquifers have both a long time horizon and a large spatial scale. Next. So you therefore need to look at governance. And next slide. Yeah, so next. So in Pakistan, there are a number of issues. In many areas, there's groundwater depletion. Now, that not only means that there's less water available, but it gives water quality problems because it concentrates the pollutants. And as groundwater gets depleted in some areas, you get arsenicosis because that's pulled out of the aquifer. So that's when there's depletion. In other places, there are rising water tables, which leads to salinity and, again, water quantity and quality problems. Now, there's some really important interlinkages between surface and groundwater. It's usually the surface irrigation systems that are causing salinity, for example, but in other places, the recharge from the surface is what provides clean water to flush it out. But even though they're interlinked, they're usually under different authorities. And there are linkages between quantity and quality of water, but there are different measures and information needs. And I'll come back to that, I think. Then there are special governance challenges because the authorities for surface and groundwater, for just even within one of these, are fragmented. So that's a particular problem. And that's not only fragmentation between different government agencies, but between government and the users. And there's a lack of information. Information on water quality, even more problematic than on water quantity. Next. So there are quite a number of policy tools that have been used depending on different objectives. One whole set are to control the number and expansion of wells, and that might be regulations and licensing kinds of things. There are tools related to controlling the abstraction by existing wells, and there are ones that manage the supply. I won't go into each of these, but just to say that we can group them, and there are a lot of things that have been tried. On the next slide, we see that I'm going to go into some more categories of or types of policy and institutional tools for groundwater governance. The first is just direct provision usually by the government. That can be of surface water irrigation. It can be groundwater irrigation. Pakistan used to have a lot of state tube wells. Often don't. And then there are managed aquifer recharge and drainage. There used to be the left bank outfall drain. That's where the government is directly providing these services. And research on aquifers is another direct provision by the government. But the government's not the only actor that is, and not the only stakeholder. So multi-stakeholder processes are also important that should involve water users, which might be through water user associations, could involve NGOs, corporations, professional societies, And these might be grouped as advocacy coalitions, social movements, networks, sometimes river basin organizations. There's a whole literature on polycentric governance that says you can have governance at different levels by different actors, and it's a question of, are they coordinated in some way? So creating forums and federations to bring groups together is one approach to governance. Next. There are also financial and economic tools that have been tried in many cases, like payments to not irrigate, selling, in some cases where people have solar irrigation, you can create financial incentives for them to sell excess electricity to the grid. Subsidies for farm inputs and outputs, things like for drip irrigation. Water tariffs and pricing have been tried. It's often difficult to implement. Fees and fines as a negative financial incentive, to get people to cut back on water use or to pump where there's rising water tables. Water markets can be provide financial incentives. And there are nature-based solutions which might include payment for ecosystem services. Another set of tools we can broadly think about is providing information. That can be, for example, on providing data like on weather or on evapotranspiration. They can be by geographic information systems. You create decision support systems for that. You can provide extension and training, media outreach, and educational approaches. Next. There are also, if we think financial as the carrots, there are also the sticks that are often put in place. Regulations that can be rules or norms about well spacing, protection zones, volumetric controls, crop rotation, requiring only certain crops in each season, irrigation scheduling, well licenses. You can't put in a well unless you have the license for it. Metering, measuring, control via electricity connections, evapotranspiration-based rules or enforcement, and liability penalties if people do the wrong thing. And regulations are usually imposed by the government, but there are more, if regulation is seen as a negative, acknowledging tenure and rights can be a positive thing. And that can be through recognizing customary rights, basic human rights to water, devolving control to communities, and environmental protection kinds of things. So there's a whole bunch of approaches that are perhaps less negatively seen by communities. Next. Finally, I've worked, while these other approaches have been there for a long time, we've now recognized that externally imposed things rarely work. You have to have, but there's a stronger case that things will work if communities themselves, if people themselves are involved. So, and if they really understand and internalize these rules. So we use experiential games where we simulate what happens to the aquifer through number of rounds of games. Or there can be mapping that uses local knowledge, participatory hydrologic modeling, where people record their own well depth, model scenarios. You can do crop water budgeting by the community, and these dialogues and building consensus, even stories and conversations can be tools for groundwater governance. Next. So none of these tools will work alone. On this slide, I have some examples of how they have been put together in combination. And I'm not going to go into all of them, but just to say that, for example, one NGO I know works with the games, but they also provide crop water budgeting, tools, education, and a combination of approaches. In China, there have been both irrigation quotas, which are fairly strictly enforced, but also financial incentives and payments to not irrigate, and bringing water in as a substitute for groundwater, surface water. Next. So basically there are quite a few institutional tools for groundwater governance, but no panaceas. There's nothing that is going to work everywhere. And even when you put combinations together, there aren't a lot of cases where this has been successful. It's often blamed on a lack of political will. And it is true that it's very hard to get politicians to tackle, to go against what farmers may perceive as their short-term interests. But often, a lot of these things are just not feasible. That's the other problem with a lot of the instruments that are proposed for groundwater governance. As I mentioned, a lot of times external rules are very hard to enforce. So groundwater co-management can combine stakeholders' knowledge, that includes the farmer's own knowledge as well as expert knowledge from the government, and their values, and create collective action with community and external science. Those governing groundwater can learn to create institutions from many different sources, including experience, knowledge, conversations, examples from others, design principles and patterns, and based on a whole range of studies. But they really need to be adapted to local conditions, and particular combination will depend on what quantity and quality issues need to be addressed in groundwater. Nexus gains can come from combining and crafting these institutions and solutions that fit the context. Next. I just am ending with some key references. These are available online, and I'm happy to follow up with anyone and answer any questions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruth, for providing this very comprehensive groundwater governance framework, highlighting the importance of technical, environmental, social, and financial aspects involving all the multi-stakeholders. From your presentation, we can see that how challenging it is to have the better govern the groundwater. Particularly, you have mentioned the political will, which is one of the most important challenge factor for these aspects. So, ladies and gentlemen, we move to the panel discussion. Then we will ask in the question and answer, we will also request Dr. Ruth to stay with us. Then we can ask question from you as well, from the panelists and from the Dr. Ruth as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request our learned panelist here at this stage. First, I would like to request Mr. Tariq Yamin. Mr. Tariq Yamin has more than 15 years of experience in irrigation management. Currently, he is working as a Deputy Chief Water Sources Zone, Punjab Irrigation Department. Tariq, please. Our next panelist, Ms. Hafsa Iman. She is a remote sensing expert with a focus on optical and microwave remote sensing, and she is a senior research officer of geoinformatics at IMI, Pakistan. Ms. Hafsa Iman. Now I would like to request Dr. Yasir Niaz. He has more than 8 years of experience in teaching and research. Currently, he is working as an associate professor and associate dean, mechanical and agriculture engineering at Khwaja Farid University of Engineering and Information Technology. Welcome, Dr. Yasir Niaz Sahab. Now, I would also like to request Ms. Barira Fatma, my colleague. She is Director Water Management at Pakistan Council of Research in Water Resources. She has more than 15 years experience in water resources development, management, and also governance. I can't see Zafar Iqbal Vattu Sahab is available. Is not. Zafar Iqbal Vattu Sahab. Please, now I would like to request Engineer Zafar Iqbal Vattu Sahab. He is a renowned water resource engineer with more than 25 years of experience. Currently, he is working as a director, Rahman Habib Consultants. One of our colleagues, I could not see him, he was named as one of the panelists, Mr. Francois Onimus. He was from the World Bank. I could not see him here. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to start the discussion, just एक पीछे जाना जरा. पीछे जाओगे? नहीं, पीछे मूव करेंगे. लाइट पीछे. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just okay. No, I think let's go back. उसी पे मुझे दे दें. उसी पर चला दे भाईजान. Let's just to set the scene. These are the two maps, one on the left hand side, the other on the right hand side. The left hand side, it gives the water quality at the 50-meter depth in the entire Indus Basin, starting from where we are sitting here to the upper Indus to the lower Indus towards the Arabian Sea. And the right-hand side, photograph or the map shows the groundwater quality up to 300-meter depth. In all the aquifers in the world, most of the aquifers in the world, only quantity is a challenge. But in Indus Basin is a unique aquifer. In fact, our groundwater is saline because of its marine geological formation. Over it, a freshwater layer exists because of the recharging from the aquifer, recharging from the extensive irrigation network. And close to the recharging sources, this layer of fresh water is thick, and as we move away from the recharging sources toward the center of the Doab, this thickness becomes thinner and thinner. So, ladies and gentlemen, management of groundwater aquifer in such an environment when you have a very fresh thin layer in a, in a particularly in a thin layer, and is this thin layer, varies over space and time, then it's become very critical and very challenging to manage this aquifer. So setting this scene, so we have put a number of questions for you, for the panelists, and I have just put another, photograph of the recent publication by the PCRWR from how we can move from groundwater monitoring to management. So this is a case, this is a challenge for us. We know that a number of institutions like SMO, WAPDA, Irrigation Department, universities, IMI Pakistan, PCRWR, they are basically monitoring the groundwater aquifer. How we are going to manage this, how we are going to manage this, the one of the vital aquifer of the Indus Basin. I will start from Dr. Yasser, from you. So, giving the context of these, groundwater challenges, just simple question, not going to the question we have written. In your opinion, how we are going to move, how we can move from monitoring to management?
Okay.
In your perspective.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed, Honorable Dr. Mohammed Ashraf Saab, the former chairman of PCRWR. First of all, I would like to say thanks to Dr. Mohsin Hafiz, the director of IMI, for giving me this opportunity to come over here and brief and give us my discussion panelists about the groundwater legislations in groundwater management and other things to be here. Khwaja Farid University of Engineering and Information Technology is one of the bigger academic partner of IMI from last 3 years. We have been indulged with IMI from last 3 years, and one of these office of IMI in district Remia Khan is placed in Khwaja Farid University of Engineering and Information Technology. They have been started and initiate many projects over here like sensor based irrigation systems here, and the other many others, so many we can discuss at what we are what we are discussing, what we are contributing, what we are collaborating. First of all, you are talking about the groundwater monitoring system. Actually, we are lacking in groundwater monitoring system in Pakistan, because initially you said that SMOs, SCARP monitoring system, placed the piezometer wells across the Punjab. Maybe it's around for 1 or 1.5 decade ago, but there is no proper management system of that piezometer installed in across the Punjab, even across the Pakistan. IMI started with the collaboration of Khwaja Farid University of Engineering and Information Technology in Rahimyar Khan. They have been placed more than 30 piezometer installed across the district Rahimyar Khan. We have 4 tehsil in Rahimyar Khan. One is Sadiqabad, is on a border of Punjab and Sindh. Second one is Rahimyar Khan. Third one is in Kharpur. Fourth one in Liakatpur. So IMI has been started installed more than 30 piezometer installed. It's a real base data management system that has been actually started by the IMI with the collaboration of Khwaja Farid University of Engineering Information Technology. I think it's a great milestone, because by the installing of these piezometers, we are getting the real base data system on a daily basis. How much water is declining day by day, how much water is upping day by day, how much water is declining after the extraction, after the pumping of a groundwater. So IMI actually maybe they started in a Okada center, maybe they start in a Punjab and other centers. But in my point of view, if we talk about the Khwaja Farid University collaboration, IMI started piezometer installation in Rahimyar Khan, and they already been installed more than 30 numbers of piezometer for getting the good database about the groundwater monitoring system.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yasser, for highlighting the importance of the monitoring and the role the Khwaja Farid University and me are playing in the monitoring. Sustainable groundwater management requires a balance between recharge and abstraction, basically. Barira, you have been doing a lot of work with the CGIAR and also from the platform of PCRWR, IMI, they have number of initiatives you have taken. How we can create a balance between abstraction and discharge? What kind of innovative technologies do you think which are workable? You have worked with the farming community, you have worked with the woman, gender, you have worked in the 4 provinces. How we can, what are the innovative technologies or invention which we can use, practices we can use to create balance between the abstraction and recharge?
Sir, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak here. Uh, this is, in fact, the first question you asked, and the second question now you have asked. This is a huge question, and there is no single one answer, and I will try to answer one by one in the order of priority. If you want to do something for groundwater and the sustainable management of groundwater, first we have to combine the management of surface and groundwater. Otherwise, we are not going to achieve this feat. So when I am talking about the combined management of surface and groundwater, so it means we need to, in fact, offer such technologies and such solutions that communities are aware and they are convinced not to use groundwater when it is not needed. For example, for instance, Dr. Ruth has mentioned irrigation scheduling. As you are very much aware that you have been a strong advocate of irrigation scheduling, and it has been there since, I believe, in 1960s. And why it is not prevails until now, and still why our scientists are talking about it, because it is very difficult to do. Irrigation scheduling, telling farmers, and in fact, the problem with the scientists is that, I'm not saying that for the manager and that, problem with the scientists is that in attempt to make technology so perfect, we make it so difficult. And in order to improve it, we do not open it for the communities. So like we started irrigation advisory services in Pakistan, and although it was a very, you can say, a solution that need so much improvement, but we actually started it and we gradually improved it. And in the end, we gathered stories from the farmers that they did not, after learning from the advisory services that their crop does not need water, so they do not went to their field, they did not operate their tube well. Second thing, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, census technology. Not all farmers are rich enough to or educated enough to use their sensor technology, but still they are willing to experiment, because they only experiment on those technologies that result. Irrigation advisory services is one of them, like opening the scheduling knowledge to everyone, to the farmer, irrespective of their educational background, their poverty level, anything. And secondly, if you involve farmers in sensor technology, like in our university as well, we were told that farmer is ignorant, he uses so much water, he does that, he does this, but we have never told him that if you over irrigate your field, you are actually going to leach down your nutrient as well. We worked with farmers in 6 districts of Pakistan, 49 villages, and we gave them a solution of moisture monitoring combined with nutrient monitoring. And they convinced themselves through experiential learning by installing batting front detector. When they apply so much irrigation, which yet they do in their normal routine, they are actually flushing out their fertilizer into the root zone. And lastly, it is my request to the institutions, we need to go to the farmers. We need to talk to them. We need to understand them, because my team has worked with such farmers who are actually allotted the canal water, who pay Abiana every year, but they're not getting any water. What they are going to do then? They have to pump the groundwater. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Brira. One of your key messages is reaching to the farmer, training the farmer, capacity building of the farmer, involving farmers, how they can better, use the water, so there is a less abstraction from the groundwater. So one of the component you have addressed, we need to reduce the abstraction for the sustainable groundwater management. So Tariq Yamin Saab, you are representing, the irrigation department, the water resources zone, which in fact is a result of the Water Act, which Secretary Saab mentioned in the morning. So the Brida mentioned one of the aspect, the reduction in groundwater. Is there any regulatory framework you are working on it, which can help to reduce the abstraction, enhance the recharge to the aquifer? So over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Saab. Much has been explained very nicely by Dr. Ashraf Saab, but I would like to explain some of the hidden facts regarding the sustainable management of aquifer. So basic thing which is needed at this time is the effective database for controlling the sustainable management of aquifer. So Punjab Irrigation Department at the moment is working on 3 type of data sets. First is groundwater level, and second is the groundwater quality, and all is being carried out at 6x6 kilometer grid in 36 districts of the Punjab at a time. And also recently we have started in the monitoring in the non-canal command area of Punjab, especially in Cholistan, Potohar and Thal. Then a third type of data which is required is discharge data. Unfortunately, the discharge data of tubules in Punjab was not available. For that, after establishment of water source zone, Punjab Irrigation Department has started a project by the support of World Bank with the name Electronic Georeferencing of Tubules in Punjab. So under this project, water source zone is registering the tubules in all over the Punjab in 36 districts. So far, more than 10 lakh tubules has been registered and only 2 lakh tubules are in process. Fourthly, I would like to draw the attention after the completion of these 3 types of data sets, water source zone will analyze the hotspots by using GIS techniques, and after mentioning the hotspots in Punjab, definitely as Dr. Ashraf Saab is asking about the regulation, under the Water Act 2019, Punjab government will take initiatives, especially in the areas where water level is depleting with very high rate. So after finalizing the critical areas, definitely government will initiate some hard steps to control abstraction, uncontrolled abstraction in the Punjab. Definitely Agriculture Department is co-partner with the Irrigation Department for installing the new tubules, and they will definitely provide the recommendation in the areas where water level is depleting with very high rate. So there are a number of recommendations like cropping pattern should be reframed, and there should be zoning, hydrogeological zoning of the sweet area and the brackish area, which is needed at the time. And then there should be water recharge wells and rainwater harvesting schemes should be there to enhance the water aquifer. Similarly, presently Punjab government is also taking initiatives under the PIDRA Act 2023. In this act, government is defining the zones in whole of the Punjab. Especially, they have defined 7 to 8 zones in Punjab to finalize the depletion rate in these zones. So after defining the zones, they will depute a staff in all these zones who will be held responsible to control the uncontrolled abstraction in terms of installing the new tube wells and in terms of growing crops. And definitely under the law, it will prove very helpful for the community. And lastly, I would like to say that farmer participation is very necessary. Only the act is not 100% helpful to promulgate the all recommendations. So there should be active participation of the farmers and other stakeholders also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tariq Yamin Sahab. One of the most important point from your discussion is the monitoring helps to identify the hotspots and then the bright spot, and so accordingly we can take action where to put a cap, where not to put cap, where to regulate, where not to need to regulate, and more importantly, involve the community, because it is very important to involve the user into the system. Unless they don't understand what is happening, beneath the soil. The last year, the World Water Day theme was, the groundwater making the invisible visible. This was the most important theme last year, World Water Day, UNESCO, launched. And that is, in the beginning, I showed you the two maps, trying to basically, make the invisible visible to us. So through monitoring, we always try to make the invisible visible, like the X-rays and CT scan, so that the policymakers and planners can take appropriate action regarding it. So just coming to the Hafsa, मैं आपकी तरफ बाद में आता हूँ, very important आपका aspect है. Wattu साहब, the private sector is one of the largest user of water as well. They use water a lot in their industry and the road building and all they use, and most of the water is coming from the groundwater, pumped water. Just like to know your perspective from the private sector involvement. Is there any realization of the private sectors about the groundwater issues in the country? If yes, what kind of initiative, what kind of adoptive measure they are taking? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very important question because as you have mentioned that groundwater is invisible, so you cannot see the immediate impact on it. And secondly, it's readily available. Everybody, wherever he want to make a drill and take it out, anytime, anywhere, it is available, most of the places. So that's why people really, they don't appreciate the importance of this natural resource. So due to this reason, not only there's over abstraction, but also we have issues of water quality as well. Because in private sector, construction industry or the cement industry is a very large user of groundwater abstraction. Like we have been seeing the impact of this in the Potohar region where a lot of cement factories have been installed, and we have very rapid lowering of the groundwater in that area. So unfortunately, there's no, in the private sector, there's no such measures that have been taken that whatever you are taking out from the ground, you have the responsibility to have some measure for the recharge of the groundwater as well. There should be some limitations on the how much water, because it's a shared resource. It's not like anybody can abstract unlimited quantity of water for its own purpose, or especially for the commercial purposes. Because the first, it's the drinking water, which is a very important need. The second one is the agriculture sector, food, which is very important. And then comes the other needs. So for the private sector, I think we need better governance, more rules, regulations, and implementation, especially on the implementation side. I think maybe we have some laws, but they need to be implemented in true letter and spirit. And especially with this, all this urbanization, most of the industries we have in the urban areas, we have pressure from the population on the groundwater, and together with the industry, it puts a huge pressure on the groundwater. And unfortunately, we don't have some groundwater recharge mechanisms in place in our urban areas. And whenever we have rains in the monsoon, it all drains. We don't have storages or recharge wells or something like that, so that we can reduce the impact of the over obstruction of the groundwater. So the first thing I think is we have to start this thing from our schools. We have to teach our children about the importance of this valuable resource. Even in the agriculture sector, you see that the people are abstracting water, but they don't know the value of that water. They are having cash crops, they are having commercial activities with that groundwater, and especially with the introduction of the solar technology, there's a lot of wastage of the groundwater in the agriculture sector as well. So we need to have better water management. So solar is there to provide you with the cheap abstraction, but at the same time you have the responsibility to have some water storages and to water tanks, so that whatever you abstract, you can use it later on, not only waste it into the drains and into the nalas. So it's very important to teach it as a subject at all levels in our universities, in our schools. And secondly, we have to involve the communities. And thirdly, we have to implement the already in place rules, regulations for the private sector on the usage of the groundwater. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhattu Saab. You have mentioned two very important points: involvement of the stakeholder, particularly the children from the schools, and regulation, and also you have mentioned about the recharge. One of the aspect is, the solar pumping. Though we wish that there should be a solar pumping, because this is the pumping which can reduce pressure on the groundwater, because with solar you don't have the unlimited pumping. You can pump only 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and then you have to shut down your tube automatically. One of the initiative which PCRW has started in Islamabad, that was the groundwater recharge. And luckily, last year, CDS, Capital Development Authority, they with their own resources have installed 100 recharge well in Islamabad. By this June, only 80 were installed. You have seen that is the model of that recharge well. We would encourage you to just see the model. In 1 year, through those 80 wells, more than 72 million gallons of water was recharged into the aquifer. So when we say 72 million gallon, it means 72 million gallons water was saved going into the stream into the sewage lines, 72 million gallon minus from the urban flooding. So this is the potential it having. So I was just wondering to listen from you people that that one aspect is abstraction, reduction in abstraction. And the other way is how we are going to enhance the recharge into the aquifer. So just coming back to Hafsa, to you, you have a lot of expertise in remote sensing and geoinformatics, because looking at the gravity of the issues and also the scope of this aquifer is one of the largest, 17 million acre foot of land, and it's huge landmass. How are we going to monitor? How are we going to use remote sensing and geoinformatics for addressing this challenge of the groundwater management?
Firstly, thank you very much, Dr. Ashraf, and thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be a part of this panel and joining discussion with our panelists who are with us today. So before I get back to your question, I would like to say before we are going into any kind of monitoring related to groundwater management information system, before that there is a need of kind of assessment that is needed, so that we can prioritize the areas that actually needs the demand or strategic planning. So what I would say, the role of technological interventions or the involvement in that scenarios plays a very important role. And within that, for the groundwater management information system, the thing which is very important is about the establishment of our comprehensive database related to the groundwater quality and quantity. As Dr. Yamin Saab mentioned, it is very important to keep in our notice how much the quantity of the groundwater has been declining from the past year. And when we talk about the quality, which are the indicators that are continuously contributing to this parameter. So with all this kind of information in the form of our database, so the remote sensing can play a role in that scenario for kind of analysis to do, and especially the identification of the hotspot areas that are actually facing the severe groundwater challenges related to the over abstraction, and those are the areas that actually needs our attention. So in that scenarios, I would like to share a very small story that we have been doing recently in ME for a kind of monitoring for deploying the CTD divers, which is the groundwater monitoring sensor. So we have taken the information about the number of tube wells that are currently being geotagged in different districts of Punjab, even in Ukara and Rahim Yar Khan, and what are the quality of that indicators and how much the tube wells bore depth that is been increasing with the passage of time. And then we have performed a kind of analysis, and we come up with a solution that, okay, these are the areas which are very important, and these are the areas that actually needs our attention for the future kind of monitoring and for the sustainability of our aquifer system. And we have been implementing the CTD divers on those locations, and also having the information about the groundwater levels and its quality on a daily basis. And one last thing is I think that is very important, and I observed is about increasing awareness among the communities who are the end user, and how we are training them in using the user-friendly technological gadgets, and how they can use these gadgets in order to minimize the water, whatever the practices they are doing in agriculture or even in groundwater, and how they can use those gadgets in a more sustainable way, and also avoid it for over irrigating or over utilization. So I think this is both technological solutions and its end user awareness to communities. So both things are very important in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Hafsa, for highlighting these two very important points, the need for the database and the involvement of the community. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to open the floor for discussion. Kindly, you can raise your hand, you can ask question. I would request the participant to introduce yourself and then kindly ask question either to the panelist, and if our keynote speaker Ruth is available, then they can also direct question to her as well.
Doctor. Hello. Dr. Muhammad Riaz from Punjab Irrigation Department. I just want to comment on Dr. Barira, that she is informing that Irrigation Department has the fixed scheduling. But I think Irrigation Department has the fixed scheduling from a long time, and they are working very well. But we just want to need the develop the groundwater database, so that we can develop the Android application for the farmer, so that they can just go through the irrigation when they are getting the water irrigation, and the rainfall is expected in coming days, and they can very efficiently use the groundwater and save the money. Thank you.
So so do you know that in all of the villages 4G connections are not available and apps are not designed to even function on 2G and 1G? So how you are going to tackle it? So we have to. What my point of saying that, not too complicate. Start with the simple step, maybe a message, or maybe through some, or you can train your extension department or on-farm water management department to convey that message, because from a person they are very much willing to listen to, and they will be welcoming to them. But Android application, take from me, I have experimented on that.
Okay, thank you, Barira. Any other questions?
Other question is,
Yes.
Dr. What? Yasser informed about the, I know the face very well, but I forgot the name. Sorry for that. That you mentioned that you have used 30 CTD sensor, groundwater monitoring sensor in your area. Punjab Irrigation Department also installing more than 3,000 geotagging of tubes, and also monitoring for the ground. They are also, I think, 50 CTD sensors installing in the through the World Bank project. But we are working in the fragmentation, working in isolations. So why not we are working through the same, giving the data to the irrigation, so that on the single platform everybody can seek the groundwater monitoring and data.
Sir, thank you very much. I agreed with you. Actually, when we are going to set up the groundwater monitoring, first we contact with the irrigation department in Rahim Yar Khan. Unfortunately, maybe you were right at that time. You have been installed more than 3,000 CTD divers or maybe piezometers. But in Rahim Yar Khan, most of them, the SMOs installed piezometers didn't work properly, and the real base data is not getting by this. That's why we contacted with the EME, and EME taken up a step for installation of a groundwater monitoring CTD divers, as Hafza is mentioned. More than 30 initially more than 30 they have been selected, or maybe they have planned to deploy more than 100 in a district, maybe across the division, for getting the real base data system. Because we didn't get even Dr. Ashraf is sitting just behind you. He's contacted with the irrigation department and SMOs, but we didn't get any of the update from that to install over here or not to be installed. The talk just in between the us and the irrigation department, and the decision still in a hanging. What we are doing to do, what we have to plan. That's why we are talking about the CTD divers at here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yes.
Excuse me, I would like to add
Yes,
some
please.
point with your permission.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Dr. Yasa was asking about the piezometers in Rahim Yar Khan. Basically, irrigation department is working in coordination with IMI, not only in Okada but also in Rahim Yar Khan. Dr. Yasser, I want to clear, because 30 CTD divers, as you mentioned, the location you have finalized in Rahim Yar Khan. So the same piezometers we have also in those places. So your 30 divers are also installing on our 103 dead installed locations. So the contractor who is installing the boreholes in Rahim Yar Khan, out of these 103, your 30 sites are also included and in these 103 points. So irrigation department is already on board, but also Ms. Hifsa is also working with us in Ukada. In Ukada, we have 52 number of boreholes, and out of these 52 boreholes, I think 28 city divers you have installed in Ukada?
Approximately 40 plus.
40 plus.
Divers.
So already Dr. Mohsen is coordinating with our Secretary Irrigation Punjab to coordinate in all sites of Punjab regarding the PCA analysis to rectify the location of these piezometers. So I think it's a good approach, and I appreciate your efforts with Punjab government to go side by side. Thank you.
Thank you, Yamin Sahab. You have this question. I will just, all these, Dr. Riyaz Sahab, all these efforts are basically to support the irrigation department. For example, PCRWR has installed, we have mapped the entire Indus Basin and also installed 110 observation well along the eastern border in the 6th district, and the report which I just shown to you from monitoring to management groundwater, it is basically outcome of the DAR study. Why we have given this title? I give you the reason. When your Water Act was approved, and after 1 year, KP Water Act was also approved. Nasser Ghafoor Sahab, he was the chief engineer. He was the first designated, DG of the authority. He called me and he asked me, Dr. Sahab, I have been nominated as the DG, but I don't know from where to start. So to give you people the example from where to start and from where to end, from starting from the groundwater monitoring to management. And this report gives, I would encourage you to all to read it. Its hard copies are available and also available on our website. What are the step involves? And in fact, all these studies are contributing toward your efforts of the irrigation department, because you are the custodian of the surface and groundwater of the province. All these efforts, IMI, PCR, WR, SMO, all those institutions are basically, ultimately, all data is going to your database. So, Tahir Anwar Sahab, आप सवाल करना चाह रहे थे? जी सर.
Thank you very much. I am Muhammad Tahir Anwar, former Director General Water Management Cell, Ministry of National Food Security and Research. So my comment maybe here, as the title suggests, sustainable water aquifer management. One is the challenges. The main challenges, to my understanding, is the missing the database. The data is not available. When you look at the different documents or review the literature, you find different numbers. Some says it's 55 million acre feet, some says 50 million acre feet, and how much amount is abstracted, it also varies. Similar is the case with the surface water. No such data, reliable evidence-based data is available for that. And any project or program are based on the reliable data. And unfortunately, we are missing in the surface water as well as the groundwater. This is the one challenge. So my recommendation would be, my suggestion would be that we have the irrigation department, PR, PCR, WR, and different departments are work in isolation for the collection of data. As when you look at the national water policy, there is one title that the provincial governments have to develop a water atlas, meaning thereby to have the water data available for the policy maker to decide upon and how to, what's the way forward, how to tackle it with the issues. And second thing is the missing regulatory and the legislative and the regulatory framework. Though there are some available legislation and regulatory framework is available, but their implementation is lacking. In the post-lunch session, it is one of the issue is the implementation. We have the regulatory frameworks, we have the legislative framework, we have the policies, action plans. The problem is the implementation. For implementation, we need to work not into violation, but we have to integrated approaches to be like integrated water management. We need to integrate integrated efforts are needed for the implementation of to address the challenges of the sustainable aquifer management. Thank you.
No, this is very important. Data is available sometime. As Yamin Saab mentioned, Tariq Yamin Saab, data is available. Data are discrete values. We need to convert that data into information, into knowledge, to come up with some kind of hotspot and bright spots. If data is, to some extent, is not, for example, reliable, but it should give you some picture to decide to take on your action. So anyhow, this is the most important point. We always, because your policy decision is based on your data, availability of your data. So thank you very much for highlighting, and all we are struggling to fill this gap through our various efforts. Yes, sir. Again to you, sir. That.
And during the floods on the river, it is on the hourly basis. If you have any queries regarding the surface water data, we are very helpful for you.
It's available. Yes, it's not just not in the debate. Just please.
12th five-year plan. And I presented some data which has been collected from the literature. And very interesting question came from the chair. What is the source of this data? The Planning Commission of Pakistan don't have a reliable data to make the 12th five-year plan, period.
You are 100% right. Planning Commission of Pakistan does not have the data. You are right. But we have the data. And it's available on the website. IRSA has the data. It is available on the website. It is this another issue sometimes. Many students and also the development agency, they come to us and ask for the data. And we ask them, what kind of specific data do you require? Simple होता है जी हमें data दे दें. So this is because data, your requirement should be specific and based on your need. Not generally data is quite a big. It is not it is not easy cake to digest. So ladies and gentlemen, any other who want to? जी नवीद साहब, आप तो ग्राउंड वाटर के गुरु हैं, तो करें बात. सवाल नहीं करना.
Thank you, Ji, for giving me the opportunity to add on the current discussion. So, from my perspective and as well as the experience of working on groundwater management, so there are. Basically groundwater management is a cyclic process where three components are really very much important. First, we need a very comprehensive assessment of the resource availability. How much resource we have available, because there are two different dimensions of the resource. Resource varies spatially as well as temporally. So we need to know that how much water we have at a certain location at a certain time period. And this also help us in defining the sustainable limits and determining the safe yields, because different aquifers have different safe yields, and if we want to sustainably manage the groundwater, we need to know the safe limits. And then comes the monitoring stage. Monitoring is very much important to identify that how the resource is varying, and what are the hot spots and what are the bright spots. And after that comes the management part. When we have a sufficient comprehensive assessment, as well as we are real time monitoring the resource, then it is very much easy to define some management strategies. And again, through monitoring, as it is a cyclic process, we can evaluate or gauge the impact of those management strategies, whether they are working good or not. If some strategies are not working good, then we can come up with some other innovative solution or strategies that might work well. So it's a very much cyclic process to me, which basically involves the comprehensive, starting from the comprehensive assessment to monitoring, and then applying the management strategies, so that the areas where there are the hot spots, we can cap them accordingly.
Thank you, Naveed, for highlighting this. This is, this is a process, and this is not static process, dynamic process, which, changes over, the space and time. Ladies and gentlemen, we started 20 minutes late, and we will close 20 minutes late as per planned. I would go back to our keynote speaker, Dr. Ruth. You have listened the discussions and also the response from the panelist questions. Would you like to respond to any of the questions or comments you have listened? Over to you, Dr. Ruth.
Hearing what is available and what the gaps that are perceived. I think I particularly resonate with that notion that we have a lot of policies and plans, but what is the implementation and the gap of that? As part of that, I think the question is who will implement, and recognizing the potential, but also the limits of what government can implement. And going back to that notion of needing to, for everyone in communities to also understand more about groundwater, which is hard because it's a very complex system. And so I think that the notion that you've been talking about of not only building the technical knowledge that resides with one agency, but how can that go to the planning, the people who are involved in planning, implementation, and how can that be downscaled to provide communities with information as well about what are their optimal strategies and what is feasible for them and why is it in their interests. I hope that this information base will also increasingly address water quality issues as well as quantity, because I think health concerns and some of these issues are also something that can mobilize people to act and address these growing concerns. But thank you very much for including me in this session and the opportunity to hear this discussion among those who really know what's going on so well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ruth, for highlighting the complexity of the aquifer management. Ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to request Hafiz Kaisar Saab for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you, panelists, Dr. Ruth. And I think we are already done, so I should be very brief. So a lot have been discussed regarding the groundwater So my takeaways, I think we should consider groundwater as a strategic resource now, and I think it is an invisible thing. You can say it is an invisible fuel that is driving our whole economy. So according to one estimate I was reading, so the benefits related to the direct or indirect benefit related to the groundwater amounts to about like 300 billion rupees. So every year the groundwater economy is generating a lot of direct and indirect benefit to the rural communities and also to the people living in cities. So there are a lot of challenges, I think, in terms of if you see at the time of creation of Pakistan, there was only 10,000 tube-wells, and the number now has increased to 1.5 million tube-wells. So that is a big number, and that itself is a challenge, how to manage this huge number. So that itself put a huge challenge on, and this, due to this increase, definitely the obstructions, groundwater obstruction has also increased tremendously over the years. And in terms of, I mean, opportunities, there are many opportunities we can work. I think the most important thing we have also talked about in terms of engaging the users. I mean, in terms of, if we talk about the agriculture sector, we have to engage the farmers. So I think we cannot like talk about or make anything moving forward in terms of groundwater management and our governance if we cannot take farmers into the whole approach we are going to follow. So taking farmers into account, I mean, is very important. And there are, I mean, many opportunities in terms of working the conjunctive use of surface and groundwater is one of the opportunity we can work with the farmers. And in terms of, I mean, there are different approaches, like in terms of bottom-up approach, we can work with the farmers at the water course level, where we can, I mean, in terms of mapping the tube wells and also the surface water and also the rainfall. So we can take the water course as an ecosystem where we can, I mean, integrate all of these three resources and help the farmers in terms of conjunctive use of surface and groundwater. And the last thing, I think, in terms of groundwater, the major, you can say it's a challenge also, and it's also an opportunity, is the solar irrigation. So there have been a lot of debate on this during the last, you can say, 2 decades. So, and there is a divided opinion on this, like in terms of either we have to promote the solar irrigation or we don't have to. So I think the researchers definitely have to come up with kind of like concrete recommendations in terms of promoting the solar irrigation, because recently the federal government have announced the solarization of the tube wells in all the countries, but still the provincial governments are very reluctant how to move forward, because the provincial government have not yet, I mean, they have given the consent to participate in the project, but they are still, I mean, reluctant in terms of how to take forward this in terms of managing the overall groundwater sustainably. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hafez Kasab, for your closing remarks. Before closing the session, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you all first listening to us, our learned panelists, Hafsa, Tariq Amin Saab, Zafar Wattu Saab, Dr. Yasser Niaz, Brira Fatma, and more importantly, the hidden player of the whole session and the week, Dr. Tahir, my colleague, my rapporteur, and also Kashif is also taking notes of this meeting. Then all the event management team, thank you very much. Have a safe travel if you are going back. Otherwise, have a very nice stay at Islamabad. And the Islamabad weather is quite pleasant nowadays. So wish you all the best and see you tomorrow. Good afternoon.